So this is our musket, standard issue. It is our India pattern tower flintlock smooth bore muzzle loading musket. However, that's really complicated to remember, so we like to call her the brown vest. Rolls off the tongue a little bit better.
Yeah.
So this, as I said, was the standard issue weapon. It would have been in everybody's hands in the British Army during the 19th century. And surprisingly enough, it wasn't super accurate and it wasn't very efficient. So the accuracy was best within 100 yards, which is very close to beat your enemy. It could go up to 200 yards, but your accuracy significantly diminishes past that 100-yard mark, and beyond 200 yards, it's pretty much ineffective. As far as the efficiency goes, only about 70% of the time did it actually fire. So, if you have a line of 100 men standing shoulder to shoulder, as they would, only about 70 of those guns would probably go off.
Wow.
And since they're all not that accurate, you're all kind of pointing in the same general direction, hoping that someone's going to hit something. So war wasn't as accurate as it is nowadays. And so I'm going to go through how I'm going to load it for you. First here, I won't actually load it. We're a little too close for that. But then I'm going to go out and actually do the demonstration for you. So, first things first, you're going to open up your pan, and you're going to reach behind you for a cartridge. These cartridges are filled with black powder, so they are highly flammable and explosive. You reach behind, you grab it, you bite into it, and you spit it on the ground. You're going to pour some in here. This is called priming, and you prime the pan so that spark can be created outside, which will create a little bit of combustion on the outside in this pan as well. Then there's a little pinhole in here that feeds through, and whatever gunpowder that I end up putting in here in the next step will then catch fire and right out the muzzle. So we have primed. We're going to close our pan so it doesn't fall out. We're going to cast it out. I'm going to take the rest of that cartridge and I'm going to put it right in there. Take out my ramrod and slam it down. Make sure the musket ball and everything goes right down. It is in paper. That's why it doesn't necessarily fall right down to the bottom. So we like to make sure it gets there. Otherwise, it won't catch fire. We take back our ramrod and you put it back in. You can see I'm demonstrating with only 2 fingers because if these 2 blow off, I still have 3 left. So we want to check and make sure that we put the ramrod back in place. We did, because otherwise, if it's in the barrel, you could end up shish kebabs from it. And while that is still effective, you might get something done doing that, you have to go retrieve your ramrod. So you won't be able to really use your musket again until you get it back. So it's really just not the best. All right, are we ready? Let's do that.
Artillery pieces out here today. I'm going to start with this one here. So this one here is called our mortar. It is strictly a siege weapon, as you can tell from the 45-degree angle. So what that means is if you're coming up to a fort or fortress of some sort and you want to attack the enemy on the other side, the 45-degree angle allows it to go like right over top of the ramparts or any walls that are in the way. And as you can see, it's not very movable. There's no wheels on it. So I'll just demonstrate here. It's quite heavy, even though it's brass. Brass is not as heavy as cast iron, for example. I know that either one of those metals has been used for any artillery pieces. So So 2 to 4 strong artillerymen could lug this into battle, plunk it down, and that's why it's a siege weapon. You don't want to be moving in a siege too much. You're hopefully keeping the line and whatnot. So that's our mortar here. Kind of reminds me of mortar and pestle, actually. So if you're familiar with that, it's kind of like the mortar part here, the pestle. I mean, this is a sponge to clean it out. You don't want to be grinding anything in there at all. So that's this one here. It's about 5 pounds gun for this one here. So this one looks smaller. However, our howitzer over here, it actually is a smaller one. So I believe this one is roughly about 4 pounds that it can take, this one here. But it's way more movable. So you saw me trying to move this one here. This one, 1 or 2 people, we can just like wheelbarrow it around. Like, it's really, really nice. Wheels are a great invention. Thank you, wheels. There's this one here. And yeah, this one can also be used for a siege as well, up against a fort, because it has a similar angle to our mortar here. However, it is adjustable, so you can move it around. If there's a line of infantrymen coming at you, you can definitely use it for that as well. Super mobile piece here. So it's probably the most versatile one. However, it's not our strongest cannon here today. Our strongest one here is this one, our 6-pound cannon. It's kind of our big pride here. So, so I like to ask my audience, like, if it took 2 people to do the mortar, how many people do you think it took to do this one? Like, what size of artillery crew would be required for this larger gun?
4 or 6.
4 or 6, yeah. 8. Those, any guesses? Yeah. So you're really spot on with the 4. So minimum of 4. You could do 5. You could have an NCO also, you know, aiming, firing, make sure that they're doing all the things that they need to do. But I can quickly show you how it works. So one person show if you like, so you can see how it all functions. So obviously I'm going to be going in front of the muzzle. No one would have actually done that in real life, but it's just me here today. So. Alright, so this is just a plug. This is to keep it clean and free from debris when storage. So yeah, I'm going to go over to this side here. And this one, so this is, our first guy is the sponge guy. So this here, it's a sponge. You got to make sure, especially if you've been firing it off a few times, you don't want to fire it in your face when you're loading it and such. So you want to make sure that there's no spark that will go off, and you also want to make it kind of damp so you can clean it, because that's the first thing you want to do. So they'll dip it in a bucket of water, and then they would just squeegee it down, all the way down, make sure it's all good, maybe twist it a bit, plunger it basically, and that's that first person's job. So, next person, walk over here. This is our worm guy here. So it kind of looks like a worm. It's kind of nifty. So we're gonna go fishing. I don't think we're gonna catch any fish, but maybe some extra debris. You just twist it, take it out, and you know what? There could be a huge wad of gunk on top here, but that's okay, because you want to make sure it's all good for the next firing. So that person's job is all done. That's 2 people. So the third person would be what's called the powder monkey. Not a real monkey, just a lowly, probably least experienced person, the most expendable person, because they have a very dangerous job, because they'll be bringing in a similar canister like this. They would be bringing the black powder over. So what they would do is they would have similar to, so you had the lovely demonstration done for the musket firing. So similar to that paper cartridge, it would just be a larger one. So about this size, they would put it down here with the black powder. And then since it's a 6-pounder cannon, that means you can have a 6-pound cannonball. So they'd heft that up and also put it in here. So it's quite dangerous because it's dangerous substances. So, you know, if something happens to him, well, you got 4 other guys over here that can help out with that. So there's this. What's the next thing you think would happen?
You have to push it down so it's all packed.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So the sponge guy's going to come back and use the opposite end here. So this is basically their ramrod. So they're going to ram it all the way down, push it down to the base here. All right. So it's all loaded. However, so that's 1, 2, 3 people. So the 4th person here would actually come around to the back. So if I could request you guys to follow me over this way, and I can show you how it's functioning on the other side. All right. Oops, lens stock went flying here. Put it off the side here for a second. All right. Everyone can see everything okay? Awesome. Okay. So, next person here. So we have everything back here. We have the propellant, which is the black powder, as well as our ammunition, which is the cannonball back here. So we have to be able to light it, right? So this here, just like the musket, there's a little hole here. So they're just gonna prick it, boop, to get through the paper to make sure that it'll ignite and be able to go in there. So that's all good, and very simple job, this one. So at this point, we have it all primed, loaded, it's ready to go. So while everyone's scurrying up there, doing their jobs, there's another guy back here. This is called a linstock, and this would be on fire actually. So he'd be nursing this flame while everyone else is running around. And then it's finally his turn. And what he would do is he'd, stand far back, because it's quite a big gun, as far back as you can. Boom! And then it would fire off. And then the whole process would start all over again. Artillery pieces.
By the large wheels here. So this would have gone all across the colony from here down in Amherstburg, all the way up to Fort George in Niagara Falls, up and over to York, which is present-day Toronto, and then even sometimes up as far as Fort Henry in Kingston, or even Montreal or Quebec City. Now, the main kind of furnace part here, it's a little bit too small to make like a big Lord of the Rings style longsword, but by this point anyways, I mean, they have guns, you don't want to bring knives to gunfights anyways. So it mostly would have been doing small things like nails, musket balls, horseshoes, tent pegs, hooks, all really kind of like mundane things, but still very, very important. I mean, all these tents here, they all need these probably upwards to 20 tent pegs each, and this is only a fraction of however many tents would be at a fort at any given time. There used to be buildings surrounding the whole of the perimeter of the fort. All those need nails. Soldiers need musket balls. Horses need horseshoes. So still very, very important stuff. But the most important job, and the one that's most fun for me, is branding. Now let me get a good piece here to work with. Let's use a brand new one. So pretty well everything on site has a brand on it. As you can see, our little work table there is kind of covered in brands. The beds in the barracks have brands on them. On the bottom of the barrel of the musket, there's a brand on it. The blankets have brands on it. Basically everything has a brand on it, and the reason for that was it acted as a really good deterrent to stop soldiers from stealing, because it would be very easy for the British to basically identify, when something is missing and who has it, because it has a label on it. Yeah. So the most
like a patent.
Pardon?
Like a patent.
Exactly. No, that's exactly how it works. Yeah. And so it didn't always work, mind you. Soldiers are, always need to try get into, one up everything, because it is kind of a hard life. Although the British Army was a pretty solid gig overall, right? You got paid, you got fed, you got clothes, you got a place to sleep. The pay wasn't that food, the food isn't that great, the clothes are not that comfortable, and you're getting shot at all the time. So, right, you get a little desperate after a while. So it wasn't uncommon for soldiers to take some things, whether it be like a hammer, a bedroll, musket even, and then desert from the fort. And so that was particularly problematic here at Fort Malden because of how close we are to the United States. And so what a soldier would do is, so they would take whatever things they wanted to bring with them on their running away experience. They'd swim from here over to Boblo Island, which is that closest island behind you guys. Then you can kind of still see the houses from here. On the other side of Boblos, on the American side of the Detroit River, it wasn't dredged by at this point in time. So it was kind of like a swamp. You could essentially walk through it. It's going to get really deep at certain points. For the most part, right, it's not like how it is today. And so because immigration laws just aren't a thing in the early 1800s, you kind of just declare yourself an American or declare yourself away from the British, and then you're free to do whatever. So if a soldier did do that, and let's say they want to run away to Portugal or somewhere, so they make their way down to port, so they're in Boston Harbor or something, and there's a Royal Navy ship docked for whatever reason. If an officer happened to see this lone Englishman walking around with a bunch of items with brands you could only find at Fort Malden, for example, he could kind of put two and two together and realize, okay, so you've stolen, and probably at worst you've also deserted your post. And then they could apprehend him and be punished. Now, the punishments back then were obviously not very, very good, but it varied from crime to crime and who was dealing out the punishment and just kind of how the person was feeling that day. So it could be something as mundane as just go back to the fort where you came from kind of thing, return the stuff, and then keep serving. You'd be forced to serve on a Navy ship. If you guys haven't been through the museum yet, there's actually in the section about the post-military period, I believe we have a large deserter brand, and so it basically kind of looks like this big brand here, except it has a big D on it with basically little kind of needles on the end of it. So they heat that up, stick you with it, kind of make sure people know that you're a deserter and they can show you for it. So that's probably the least problem